Okay, poetry fans and friends, you asked for more recitation poetry and now you're going to get it. Today we're going to deal with William Shakespeare's Hamlet, Act 1, Scene 3. Polonius's advice to his son Laertes. I've heard people poo-poo this advice as inappropriate or inapplicable to modern life or even silly, but let's review it and see what you think. I'm going to gloss some of the advice to give you my view. It is advice in noble language. I believe it is timeless and applicable to many generations of humans. These few precepts in thy memory. A precept is an ethical rule. Aristotle wrote a wonderful book on ethics, and in that book he tells us that ethics is not an exact science, and that any fool can think up a situation where an ethical rule would not make good sense. And Aristotle gives us two examples. A ship captain is ordinarily obliged to deliver the merchandise that his ship is carrying. But if he is involved in a storm and the ship is taking on water, it makes sense for him to lighten the load by dumping the merchandise overboard and saving himself, his passengers, and his ship. Aristotle gives us another example. In general, you should not tell a lie, but if an assassin comes to a door and asks a wife, is your husband home, she can lie in order to protect the life of her husband. So let's look at these precepts. The first one, look thou character. Oh, character is so important. Aristotle, in his book Politics, emphasizes the importance of ascertaining the character of the person that you're dealing with. If someone is dishonest or lied to you, have nothing to do with them, and certainly don't vote for them. Look thou character. Give thy thoughts no tongue, nor any non-proportioned thought his act. Be thou familiar, but by no means vulgar. Well, those things could well have been addressed to Hamlet, who keeps screwing up things very badly. He doesn't consider the consequences of his actions. He doesn't even check behind the curtain to see who he is stabbing to death. It turns out it's Polonius, who's completely innocent, a sort of grandfather type figure or great uncle. He didn't do any harm to Hamlet or anybody. And then Hamlet mistreats Ophelia, gets into a nunnery, and she goes crazy and drowns. And we don't know if she drowned herself or if she just fell in and didn't know how to get out. But the church declared her a suicide, and she could not be buried in sacred ground. The friends thou hast, and their adoption tried, grapple them to thy soul with hoops of steel. Make good friends and keep them, but do not dull thy palm with the entertainment of each new hat's unfledged comrade. Don't bother or waste your energy and time with superficial relationships. So what would Polonius think of Facebook? This morning I looked at Facebook and I had 372 friend requests. How could I possibly be a friend to 372 people? Beware of entrance into a quarrel. Avoid lawsuits. The lawsuits I've been in have been terrible wastes of money, energy, and time. And the real winners seem to be attorneys. So avoid quarrels. But being in it, bear it, that those opposed may beware of thee. So if you do get into a fight, stick with it and try and win. Give every man thy ears, but few thy tongue. Take each man's counsel, but reserve thy judgment. Costly thy habit as thy purse can buy, but not expressed in fancy, rich, not gaudy. For the apparel oft proclaims the man, and they in France of the great Rankin station are of a most particular clef in that. Wear clothes that are appropriate to your situation. I have a three-piece suit that's black and pinstriped, and I use that for my TV interviews or my court appearances, or if I went for a job interview. This is my sincere suit because it makes me look sincere. And I also have found that that suit, when I wear it to high-class restaurants, gets me better service than I would have gotten under less favorable circumstances. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, for a loan oft loses both itself and friend, and borrowing dulls the edge of husbandry. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. Listen to your parents and your friends and your relatives and your law school professor, but decide what you want to do with your life in your own style and manner. If you're interested in fashion merchandising, don't even think about going to medical school. Be yourself, and you'll be happier. So that concludes Polonius's advice to Laetes. And now I will just recite it without the glosses. Look thou character, give thy thoughts no tongue, nor any non-proportioned thought his act. Be thou familiar, but by no means vulgar. The friends thou hast and their adoption tried, grapple them to thy soul with hoops of steel. But do not dull thy palm with the entertainment of each new hat's unfledged comrade. Beware of entry into a quarrel, but being in it, bear it that those opposed may beware of thee. Give every man thy ears, but few thy tongue. Take each man's counsel, but reserve thy judgment. Costly thy habit as thy purse can buy, but not expressed in fancies, rich, not gaudy. For the apparel oft proclaims the man, and those in France of the best rank and station are of the most particular chief in that. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, for loan oft loses both its self and friend, and borrowing dulls the edge of husbandry. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man.